Imagine booking a cozy cabin for a quiet weekend getaway only to find an HOA Karen claiming she's reserved it for a massive party of 100 guests without your permission. When she refused to back down, I took matters into my own hands, locked the gate, and turned her entitled plans into a humiliating disaster she'd never forget. Stick around to hear how I outsmarted this HOA tyrant in an epic showdown. Hey everyone, welcome back to another wild HOA drama story. If you love hearing about entitled Karens getting their comeuppance, smash that like button, hit subscribe, and ring the bell so you don't miss any of our crazy tales. Let's dive into this jaw-dropping saga of a cabin, a gate, and an HOA Karen who thought she could bully her way into my property. The crisp autumn air carried the scent of pine and freedom as Emily drove up the winding mountain road to her family's cabin, a rustic retreat nestled deep in the Blue Ridge Mountains. She'd been dreaming of this weekend for months, a chance to unplug, sip coffee by the fireplace, and soak in the solitude of the forest. The cabin, a quaint log structure her grandparents had built decades ago, was her sanctuary, a place untouched by the chaos of city life. It sat on a private lot within a loosely organized community of other cabins, governed by a small but notoriously mealsome HOA. Emily had always kept her distance from the HOA, paying her dues on time, but avoiding their petty meetings and endless rules. She valued the cabin's isolation, its gravel driveway leading to a sturdy iron gate that marked the boundary of her property. That gate, painted black and secured with a heavy padlock, was her first line of defense against the outside world. This trip, however, was about to test that defense in ways she never imagined. As Emily rounded the final bend, her heart sank. The gate was wide open, and a shiny red SUV was parked haphazardly on her driveway, its rear hatch open and spilling out folding chairs, streamers, and what looked like a massive cooler. Beyond the SUV, a woman in a bright pink tracksuit stood on the cabin's porch, gesturing wildly as she barked orders into a phone. Emily didn't recognize her, but the woman's aura screamed authority, or at least the kind of self-appointed authority. This was Linda, the HOA's self-proclaimed queen, a woman whose name was whispered in dread at community potlucks. Linda had a reputation for turning minor infractions like untrimmed hedges or unapproved mailbox colors into full-blown crusades. Emily had heard the stories, but never had the misfortune of crossing her path until now. As Emily stepped out of her car, her boots crunching on the gravel, Linda spun around, her eyes narrowing like a hawk spotting prey. Emily's first instinct was to ask what was going on, but something told her this wasn't a friendly visit. The porch was littered with party supplies, balloons, a stack of paper plates, and a banner that read Linda's annual fall bash. Emily's stomach churned. This was her cabin, her weekend, her escape. Why was this woman treating it like her personal event venue? She approached the porch, her keys jangling in her hand, ready to assert her ownership. Linda, however, didn't give her a chance to speak. With a wave of her manicured hand, she dismissed Emily as if she were a trespasser, claiming she'd reserved the cabin months ago for her exclusive HOA event, a gathering of 100 guests to celebrate the season. Emily's protests were met with a smug smirk and a lecture about how the HOA's community spirit trumped her selfish need for privacy. Emily's mind raced. She hadn't been notified of any reservation, and the cabin wasn't part of any HOA rental pool. It was private property, deed to her family since the 1960s. Linda's audacity was breathtaking. She'd even brought a printed reservation form, a flimsy piece of paper with the HOA's logo, as if that gave her legal claim. Emily's attempts to reason were drowned out by Linda's insistence that the event was for the greater good of the community, and that Emily, as a rarely present owner, had no right to interfere. The gall of it all ignited a spark of defiance in Emily. She wasn't about to let this entitled woman steamroll her plans. With a calm but firm resolve, she walked back to her car, pretending to check something. Instead, she quietly closed the gate and snapped the padlock shut, trapping Linda's SUV inside. If Linda wanted a showdown, Emily was ready to play hardball. Over the next hour, Linda's confidence began to crack. She paced the porch, her phone calls growing more frantic as she realized the gate was locked and her party plans were unraveling. Emily sat in her car, watching from a distance, her heart pounding, but her resolve unshaken. She'd spent years avoiding conflict, but this was her property, her sanctuary, and she wasn't about to let Linda's entitlement ruin it. As the sun dipped below the trees, casting long shadows across the cabin, Emily knew this was only the beginning. Linda wasn't the type to back down easily, and the next move would determine who truly controlled the cabin. For now, the locked gate stood as a silent challenge, a line in the sand that Linda had yet to cross. The following morning, Emily woke to the sound of gravel crunching under tires. She peered out the cabin's window, her coffee mug warm in her hands, and saw a parade of vehicles lining up outside the locked gate. Sudden minivans and pickup trucks idled in a chaotic queue, their drivers craning their necks to see what was holding them up. Linda was out there, her pink tracksuit a beacon of agitation as she waved her arms, directing traffic like a deranged conductor. Emily's gamble with the gate had worked. It had stopped Linda's plans cold, at least for now. But the sight of so many cars confirmed Emily's worst fears. Linda was serious about her fall bash, and she'd rallied a small army of HOA loyalists to make it happen. Emily's quiet weekend was slipping further out of reach, but she wasn't ready to surrender. As the morning unfolded, Linda's frustration grew visible. She stomped to the gate, rattling the padlock and shouting about bylaws and community rights. Emily stayed inside, watching from behind the curtains, her mind working through her options. She'd already checked her property deed and HOA agreement. There was no clause allowing anyone to reserve her cabin. Linda's claim was pure fiction, a power grab dressed up as community spirit. Emily's next step was to call the HOA president, a quiet man named Tom, who preferred fishing to feuds. Tom confirmed what Emily suspected. Linda had no authority to book private property. He'd tried to rein her in before, but her influence over the HOA's social committee made her untouchable. Tom's advice was to stand firm, but watch her back. Linda had a knack for twisting situations to her advantage. Emily decided to escalate her defense. She dragged a heavy picnic table from the backyard and positioned it against the gate, reinforcing her barricade. Then she printed a large sign and taped it to the gate. Private property, no trespassing. HOA event, not authorized. The sign was bold, unapologetic, and impossible to miss. As she stepped back to admire her work, Linda's face turned a shade of red that rivaled her SUV. The growing crowd of partygoers milled about, confused and restless, as Linda tried to spin the situation. She claimed Emily was a troublemaker, hoarding the cabin out of spite, but her audience was starting to waver. Some began to question why they were even there, their enthusiasm dampened by the locked gate and Emily's clear assertion of ownership. By midday, the standoff had reached a tipping point. Linda's guests were growing impatient, their picnic baskets and folding chairs abandoned on the roadside. Emily, however, wasn't content to simply hold the line. She wanted to make sure Linda's overreach was exposed for good. Using her phone, she started recording the scene, capturing Linda's tantrums and the growing chaos. She uploaded the footage to the community's private Facebook group, along with a calm explanation of the situation. Linda had falsely claimed the cabin, ignored private property rights, and was now bullying her way into a party that was never approved. The post spread like wildfire, racking up comments from other cabin owners who'd long resented Linda's tactics. The tide was turning, but Emily knew Linda wouldn't go down without a fight. As the sun began to set, casting a golden glow over the stalled convoy, Emily braced herself for the final act of this absurd drama. The third day brought a shift in the air, a mix of tension and anticipation that hung over the cabin like a storm cloud. Emily woke early, her resolve hardened by the previous day's small victories. Her Facebook post had sparked a rebellion in the community group, with dozens of owners calling for Linda's removal from the HOA board. The gate remained locked, the picnic table unmoved, and the sign still boldly proclaiming Emily's rights. Outside, the scene had changed. Most of Linda's guests had given up, their cars gone, leaving only a handful of die-hard supporters lingering near the gate. Linda, however, was undeterred. She'd arrived at dawn with a new plan, her SUV now towing a trailer loaded with what looked like a portable stage. Emily watched from the porch, her coffee long gone cold, as Linda began setting up what appeared to be a makeshift rally to salvage her event. Linda's new strategy was pure theater. She stood on the trailer, megaphone in hand, delivering a speech about unity and community pride, painting Emily as the villain who'd ruined a cherished tradition. Her remaining supporters nodded along, but their numbers were dwindling and their convictions seemed shaky. Emily, however, had one final card to play.